So thank you, Ian and Zan, for creating this gorgeous space and letting us be part of the inauguration of it. Yes, I am a local, and I'm starting with a poem for locals. My landscape. My left hand is Lake Washington, a few feet under where it gets cold, stays cold. My right hand, Puget Sound, so even colder. Seattle's 7th Hill had to be regraded, flattened. That's my heart, if you couldn't already tell. And yes, all my bridges could break any minute. It could be the big quake from deep inside that cracks and leaves me face down with a crooked I-5 backbone, paralyzed. I feel it coming. Is that too dramatic? Am I overstepping? Maybe your child isn't leaving home. And yes, David is a senior. So there's a poet I love, Ilya Kaminsky, and he wrote a book called Deaf Republic, and the first poem in that is called We Lived Happily During the War. So this poem is after that one and it's called We Lived Happily During the Heat. 100 plus, and when New Orleans gets hit, we admire our mountain, snow-covered, benevolent God, blessing us with forests deep and green. We give a thought or two to the child in the dry Texan Big Bend, fallen, and then we flash to sweat pooling in our breasts, so much fun on the dance floor. When we were in college, we had that poster, First They Came For. Maybe it's rolled up in the basement with Cesar Chavez. For years, we've been drinking iced wine with impunity. Okay, so this next song has a musical introduction. Does anybody know Free Nelson Mandela by the Specials? Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to get just a little. Hold on. Free Nelson Mandela. I can't. At 18, no matter how much I want to be, I'm not the savior. I haven't slipped red lines, my own apartheid. Yet here I am feeling the specials free like pounded silver. When all the melody slips out, the drums and the women send free like a hard wave. I tremble. My torso has no patience for stillness, Mandela locked up. My torso bops, sinks. Look out and see all the Debbies on dance floors in Camden, Gaborone, Soweto, the pulse and sizzle, the almighty flow. And I was reading an article because I was feeling so guilty that I didn't do enough, and in fact it said, all of us dancing to Free Nelson Mandela in the 80s made a difference. It did. So I wrote a lot of poems during COVID, and this one was my favorite. It's a haibun, which is a form where you have a paragraph of text and then it ends in a haiku. Pandemic haibun. I want to hug Marcy in her orange home-knit sweater. I can see her now coming down Greenwood, past the buff workout boys, coming to see me so we can wiggle and sweat and Zumba, and then return our library books and talk about our daughters who will be leaving us soon for college. Oh, to throw my arms around Elizabeth, whom I have known and loved since I was 5, when she would explode volcanoes of logic and mystery in the backseat of the yellow station wagon. I remember the dolls in green velvet we snuggled. I want to hold quick and close Catherine before we get tangled up in her dog's leashes, and Catherine before we sit down for pale green tea. And also Michelle because her friend has a tumor, and Danette, who shares her secret love for fan dancing. I want to hug Becky, Nancy, Deirdre, Pam, Peggy, Danica, Jessica, Laura, Heidi, Melissa. I have a list 100 women longer. At dusk, I leave home to find a thick birch trunk wrap all the way around. So the next two poems are from my first book, After I Stopped Lying, and this poem references a piece of art called Cathedral by Rodin that, I'll show you the book later, but John and I recreated the sculpture on the cover of the book. Evening Song. When my daughter, straight from her bath, brings her body to mine, and she has no breasts, and she has only the slightest dip in the straight line that is her, still damp with the equinox. When she molds her body to mine, her head under my head, her long rib cage against my deep breaths, our heartbeats a processional, then I know what is in the hands Rodin sculpted and called cathedral. And sometimes people ask you, how long did it take to write that poem? And I had been trying to write about Rodin for 20 years. I had been going to museums and researching him and wrote failed after failed poem about him. And then this poem came immediately. So it was all the work building up made it possible. So before I had the incredible privileged joy to move back to Seattle, John and I were traveling from academic job to academic job, and we ended up at the University of Notre Dame, where I knew no one, and also I'm Jewish, and it's a Catholic school, so there was quite a bit of culture shock. University of Notre Dame. Jesus is everywhere here. Usually dying or dead. When he was still a Jew like me, Jesus would go where women go, to the well, do the forbidden, talk to women, even Samaritans. He would know women's secrets before they spoke them. He would not judge. That is the Jesus I finally find. Outdoors, cast in bronze, one hip balanced on the lip of the well, a living hand lifted. What would they do, the Christians, if I sat next to Jesus? What would they do if I put my arms around the warm, rusted metal of his back? Oh, I am so lonely here. Jesus, Rabbi, before you become a martyr, comfort me. And these next two poems are from my second book called Shake and Tremor. When God was a woman, she explained obtuse angles, how to lay cable. She did not accept apologies for the incessant thrumming. She understood that tigers eat alligators. She set it up that way. She rode the New York subways, looked strangers in the eye. She had her first child at 99, changed her name. It's amazing what a woman can accomplish when she is not afraid. And I write a lot of poems about characters in the Bible. This is my only one today, but I do. And you may have heard of Abraham and Sarah, who are considered the founders of Judaism. And we're going to enter the story where they are actually called Abram and Sarai. And God promises that they're going to have lots of descendants. However, Sarai does not conceive, so she demands Abram takes her enslaved servant Hagar in her stead. Women's work. All of them. Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, born into a time of quiet. No radio line hum, no buzz from broken transformers. You could hear the cattle in the far field. It's hard to imagine that level of quiet, how you could hear Abram's footfall, how it differed from Sarai's as it approached the flap in Hagar's tent. The tent made of goat skin, from the goat Hagar raised and fed and chastised and chased and eventually whose throat she slit. The goat whose carcass she butchered, meat she seared, whose hide she scraped, softened with its own brains, her own urine, because she knew how and she could. And now, as this supple skin Hagar stretched and tied is lifted, it whispers, survive. So here's your two-poem warning, last two poems. And they're the first and last poems in my new manuscript, which doesn't have a publisher yet, so hopefully send that out into the universe. Actually, I sent it out to publishers, hopefully they can take it. And as many of you know, I love to dance, but it's not usually club dancing. And for a friend's birthday, for Marcy's birthday, we went to the Baltic Room on Capitol Hill. At 45, I go to the club. Hey kid, I've never been to this moon. I should not go on about the pulsing rhapsody of fire. I don't know how fire pours heat through space in waves, let alone how it happens, if it can, on this dance floor. Did you see me fly through the door in pale blue, pretty in the formal shininess? I only got to show off for a few minutes at a wedding before my toddler's wail forced me to slump 4 hours in a shades-pulled dank hotel. Hunched before the smudged mirror, I stared, black hairs unwavering on my chin shore. Kid, I see you dance floor bobbing, a floundering lure in deep beat currents. Unlocked, you could swerve, drop, cruise like a moth through pale blossoms. You don't have to look in my eyes. I know I'm here. It's true. I don't say the word pussy in public. I don't when the DJ demands we testify, spew it like you do, all slink and screech, all howl. I can tell from your tense elbows, from the quick flicks of your jaw, you don't know all that word means. Even if you pound fists, get kicked out of the club for the girl you don't love. Even if you're scared, you tore the wrong jeans, wore the wrong beads tied on your neck, stung your chest with the wrong tattoo of a small bent blossomed rose. You're not alone. We all yearn. We're all here in the beat's embrace. Bend your knees. Feel your hips cant. I am the witch who can teach this to you. A lifetime of underground ballrooms off back alleys, lit with a few bulbs where the bass takes over my bones, my breath pours blood through my heart, asteroids and spells colliding on the cold, hard floor, my breasts alive in blacklight. Sink your ass down and shake it like a can of midnight whipped cream, like a boxcar coming around the bend. Oh, my boy. Oh, the body. And the book is called Oh, the Body. And this is the last poem in the book and in my reading, A Fine Appendix. One day I looked up and saw a V of wings over the plains like a long oboe note, and I was helpless with love. I want to thank the bonfire sex, the banjo that is late kitchen evenings, baby asleep in my arms, all heat and heartbeats visible. I want to thank the hush of ancient trees, the anachronistic artifact that is the appendix. How strange I am not a heifer or a pumpkin. How fine it would be.